Well, I'm on the computer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I have a tripod, so
Yeah.
it's easy to like have the phone and lights and all
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, I mean, your setup looks, it's not surprising you are on television. Your setup's looking very pro in
Oh,
general.
thank you.
Look, I appreciate, the conversations that we've had over the last couple of days, but I'm excited to kind of rehash some of those and, answer any other questions or have a conversation. And, as I said, I think important that these are recorded and published unedited. I think that it's, fair for the community to be calling for transparency, to be asking hard questions. And I think a lot of brands are trying to hide behind PR statements
Oh,
and
of course.
put out enough of a statement to make a problem go away without having to follow through and do anything. And I think that world is gone, and I think today and this new world is one where you have to show receipts. You have to show actions. So I appreciate these conversations, and I'm looking forward to chatting.
Likewise. Thank you for being transparent and even having this conversation.
I think, we're publishing this on the Drink with James channel. It's obviously not a normal Drink with James where I would be interviewing you about everything that you do and kind of what your life is all about. But I think a little bit of context would be great, of just who you are, what you do, where you are in the world right now.
Yes. Well, thank you. I'm Melissa Chataigne. I'm a fashion stylist. That was my original start of into the career was fashion. Did a lot of celebrity styling and always wanted to work more in television. So I've spent the last 10 years doing a lot of digital work, and now I'm a host. I work as a fashion expert on Access Hollywood, on Access Daily, and I have a recurring segment on Access Weekend. That has been within the last couple of years. But also I've had a blog, Chataigne Style, for, when 2008 when I started blogging. It's a while ago.
12 years.
Yeah, a long time ago. And I was like the first. And then I stepped away from it for a bit because of other things. I mean, when you do a lot, you kind of have to sift.
Right.
But I've never really, I've been a part of for I believe about 3 or 4 years, but I've never really acknowledged and aligned with the term influencer. For me, I'm a public speaker. I work with sororities. I help them with their rush and how to prepare and dress with confidence. I do a lot of body positive workshops off the gram. So when I hear the word influence, true influence for me is influencing yourself to be the best person to reach your full potential. But with that being said, I have worked with a slew of brands over the years, and even now it's even changing more and more. And I've had a couple of campaigns of 4, which we can talk about, but they were smaller. My following is I would say it's not huge, but it's not small by any means.
14K is nothing to, that's not small. That's a lot of people.
Well, yeah, but for me, it's when you're talking about often influencers and in that whole realm, I've never felt comfortable in the influencer space. I've never really felt comfortable going to influencer events. To me, like I said, influence event, it's a runway show, it's fashion, it's TV. That's my safe space.
Right.
But the conversations have been had that when I look at why I've never felt comfortable, it's because I've seen mediocre talent rise to the top. A bunch of white influencers kind of take over this game and make it very shallow. And when I've gone to events, I've never really felt like welcome. And so for me, I've said, well, what's my business? What's my return on investment? What pays my bills? Speaking, styling, TV. Anything else is the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
But why? Why do I feel that way? Why with campaigns do I feel like I should be honored to sit at the table, but not really get compensated the fair amount? And I think that's why we're having this conversation. Yeah,
absolutely. And I want to touch on, because this is an interesting, you're an OG. I didn't know you were like an OG blogger. 2008's early.
Yeah. It was called Vivaciously Chataigne back in the day. And now just Chataigne style. But yeah, I've gone through some changes myself.
And, you know, I started my blog in 2008. That's when I started putting, you know, nonsense onto the internet. And obviously we've seen the world change. I think I started this company 8 years ago. And one of the biggest shifts for me, and one that I'm trying to push back against, is that when you started the blog and when your contemporaries started their blogs, it was about look at what I'm putting into the world. Look at my sense of style. Look at the way I, you know, do makeup. Look at my writing on this subject. And it was about your output and about your vision. And then 2 or 3 years after I started the company, I'd say 2014, 2015, it just shifted to like, look at me.
Yes.
You know,
and that's what I never aligned with.
Right. And not, so now your value wasn't in, can you, as we say, educate, inspire, or entertain, but are you, you know, traditionally genetically gifted and hot? Like, are you hot?
Yeah.
And in the like society's most traditional definition of what being attractive is. And I think the reason we are disassociating from the word influencer is that we feel like we want to work with the people who are adding something of value to the world, who are not just like, look at me. And so, you know, I think that.
Thank you for finally coming around, James.
Yeah. And I say, like,
you're a business, and that's where the money was, and that's the opportunity. So I'm not ever judging it by that means, but that's where I've kind of stepped back and have gone other directions, and maybe we'll see the change in that it can be more aligned with my purpose.
Because I think like where the world is going is like, and our shift to ambassador marketing is about like, there's going to be more people like you that are like professionals that have like real talents and jobs that they're doing. Oh, they also have a following. And those, we see our brands more and more saying like, I want to work with someone who's not just an influencer. Not to disparage that. Like if that's your full-time job, awesome, you know, but people, just everyday people are just getting bigger platforms, you know?
Yeah.
And I've talked to a lot of people who kind of in your spot that's like, I've got a good following, people, you know, and I've got these skills. I don't totally consider myself an influencer.
Yeah.
But you're influential.
But I think we were talking about the other day of like smashing the patriarchy, smashing the system. That word influencer, I think, is gone. I think the way that we even provide talent is gone. I've taken a pause on how I'm reintroducing my content this week because I'm sorry, a cute picture of me in this little onesie against a mirror taking a photo, that provides no value. And I think people are tired of the shit. It's over. Yeah. And I think that's going to happen across the board. Yes. Influencers have found followings because of the escapism and the beautiful pictures, and people want a distraction from their lives. But when things get real, are they there to step up to the plate and acknowledge that? And how can we improve our lives as a whole by coming together? And that no longer includes just a selfie or a really cute photo of a dress. Like, right. How is that dress working for you? Like, I remember with the Like to Know It, I can't remember the stats back in the day, but when I finally joined that platform, which I still have resistance for, because as a stylist, when someone buys something because I have it on, 9 times out of 10, it won't work on them because of their body type, and it's returned anyways. So like, what's the purpose? Now, if I can teach you tips for you to identify things that you like from me, like a silk scarf, and these are scarves that are in your color palette that will align with you, great. But that's what I'm saying. Like, all of that is over. I don't know. Do you feel that way?
Well, look, yes. I feel like I talked to a lot of reporters like a couple months ago. This was more about, you know, COVID. And I said that I felt that the country will have less appetite for frivolity.
Mm-hmm.
We want substance. We want something substantive, not just sugar.
Yeah,
And
because people are struggling. People can't pay their mortgages and can't pay their rent and not working.
right. I don't want to see your new Chanel bag if I can't pay my mortgage. And that's a real, and that is what happens in recessions, which we're in, is that the logos go away. The gaudy clothes, the gaudy bags, all that goes away, because in a recession, the kind of ruling 1% class feels a pressure to not show that they have money. And I think for Instagram, which has turned into so much of conspicuous consumption, look at what I have. I'm consuming, my value is in what I own, not what I add to this world. That I hope people put their hands up and say, enough is enough. I'm not interested in that. Your life isn't anything like that. And then, to have, Black Lives Matter coming back into the national, conversation in such a big way, even more so. Okay, I really don't care about your Chanel bag.
No.
People are being murdered by police officers, and that has been happening for hundreds of years. And there are more important things to talk about.
When you think of the basis of some of these companies, Chanel, I believe that the hype for not but was associated with the Nazi Party, mm-hmm. all of these things, and the rappers and influencers that post these bags, like, do you really follow the money?
Right.
It's even with these campaigns. I understand the frustration of my fellow Black creatives of not being included in the conversation. That's part one. But part two is putting your money where your mouth is. I refuse to work with certain brands because of their political affiliation. I don't make that public, mm-hmm. but I'm not just ready to sit at the table and take it all.
Yep.
I don't want it to be inclusive of tokenism where I'm like, well, now Black people are hot. Let's just like, you have to be fiscally responsible. And I believe that this will push the conversation forward, that not everyone will align with that. But I think it's important that we do, and brands are smarter. And I just talked about this today, that more brands are like, well, I want to create a diversity and inclusion panel. No. I want people of color to be included in the decision-making of bigger organizations. Mm-hmm. That's no longer acceptable.
Right.
And I raise you, James, with 4, mm-hmm. Some of the comments that I've seen, that there hasn't been many Black people working on staff. Mm-hmm. I understand that. I understand that. That's why I'm not feeling I want to attack you in any ways. For most of my career, when I was in corporate America before styling, I was the only Black executive. 12 years of Catholic school, the only Black girl in the room. Like, mm-hmm. This is dancing ballet since I was 2, the only Black dancer. So I get it. But that way also doing business is over. Yeah. And I think opening it up, that maybe if there was more representation in the room in the first place, we wouldn't even be sitting here. Absolutely. And having this conversation.
Absolutely. I think that is 100% correct. And, we have this town hall tomorrow, and I'm going to share a lot of data and, hopefully clear up some of the questions that were raised, especially around compensation. Not to say that we have, there are things we need to change, and we're excited about changing around that. A data point I'm not proud of is there's one Black person that works at 4, and 3 or 4 years ago, we were 15 people. I looked around and I was like, my co-founder is Asian, and that's it. Everyone else is white. And I said, well, I can't run a modern company that is, working within communities that I don't have staff that understands that. I need to make sure that we have diverse voices on this team. And, we've grown 20 people since then. The company is now like 28% POC, but that's not good enough. How many people of color in leadership? 0. Right? It's not good enough. And, I can say, look, we had 22 hires planned this year. You know, we were going to do a lot of investing in our growth this year. And, you know, COVID took away 70% of our revenue.
Yeah.
Overnight.
I mean, that's
and
real.
The first thing that happened was I had to cancel all of those hires, you know? And so my question to you, because I do think a lot of people are going to put together these advisory boards, right? Which will be, a lot of them could be helpful. A lot of them could just be a tokenism, you know, a piece of tokenism.
Well, yeah.
My question to you is, you know, we've been thinking about, and I've been talking to people about an advisory board, especially one that will allow me to have some accountability to transparently delivering data on our hiring, our pipelines, applicant pipelines, and the ethnic makeup of those applicant pipelines as we do lift our hiring freeze, the amount of payouts that we're sending to influencers broken out by ethnicity, as well as the CPMs, making sure that there's equal pay amongst those groups and being transparent and held accountable to those things. And I think for me, I wouldn't need that board if I had diverse voices on my executive and leadership team. But my question to you is, I can't do that right now. Financially, I can't make those hires, which are going to be, you know, six-figure hires. The business just isn't in place. So in the absence of being able to make that move, do you feel that a board that is given actual access and you know, the freedom to have some say over what we're doing and have they have some teeth. Do you feel like those can be effective? Because this is a real problem that I'm grappling with.
Definitely can be effective. I think looking at having people from different tiers, maybe smaller influencers, larger influencers, maybe someone from a brand that's sitting on the board, someone maybe in the political space. I think all of it is really important. And I think it needs to be implemented as soon as possible, to be quite honest. You know, I like looking at all the things that you put out and the statements that you put out, and in support of those statements, it's very difficult to be a leader in the industry, because I don't see any other influencer agencies really saying anything right now. Your feet are held to the fire and people are very angry, but with that great responsibility you've taken, it also comes with this feedback, this backlash as well. So I think you're moving forward in the right steps to have a diversity inclusion panel, as well as have the town hall. But also I would like to see more support for Black creatives and this simple thing. So in the conversation that I've had with some of my fellow creatives, we're talking about their experience with the payouts, these type of things. And I understand you run a business, but there is this feeling for us that when we get invited to do a campaign, we don't have room to negotiate. And we're just excited to have a seat at the table on the side, not realizing we're at the corner and taking maybe significant less. I think that system of maybe not speaking up and not allowing people to come back and say, hey, this really doesn't work for me, puts us at a disadvantage, because inherently the Black community is just happy to be invited often. And that we feel like we can't speak up. And that system is inherently biased because people of color usually don't make as much. That is like facts. And White creators command a lot. I think for me, my resource and how I want to spread my voice is to encourage Black creatives to be better businesswomen, to take the control into our hands and either fire back with a constructive email saying, hey, this isn't actually worth my pay rate or time. And even work directly with brands. Where I have found the most success as a influencer, air quotes, influencer, is having brand partnerships directly with brands that I'm working with them on an ongoing basis. I think I understand that you're a business owner, but I feel like that needs to be better.
Yes.
How can we support? So like going back to the 4 freshman class, because I know we wanted to touch on this. You mentioned that the purpose of the 4 freshman class was to bring in a diverse group of bloggers, influencers, et cetera, to learn, to meet Facebook to meet the brands, to meet different realms and learn how they can elevate their content. And the misconception was that it was going to guarantee them opportunities in the future. But For's stance is that it was a learning experience.
Yep. Oh, sorry, you?
No, it's
okay.
learning experience. So at this point, my question is, during this 4 freshman class, like, did you talk about the business? How to go about it? Because that's the missing piece where I feel like Black influencers have kind of felt they've gotten the short end of the stick because they're not included. They don't feel like they can speak up. And then we see the pay disparities. It's like, well, this is like, that's how it works.
Right.
If you don't use your voice, you don't get the money.
Right. Let me speak to three.
That was a lot.
That was a lot, but I got it here. I'm fresh. I got a cup of coffee. So I think 3 things there. One, the way that we calculate offers needs to be changed. I think that as we're doing a study right now, we're doing a study of about the last $10 million of offers that we've made, making sure that Black and non-Black influencers are getting offered the same amount of money. I think what the data is going to come back and show is that, yes, that is the case, that they're not getting different offers. But to your point, there can be, especially for new influencers, especially for micro influencers who are just getting into this, there is a gap in who negotiates and who doesn't. Our prices include a buffer, assuming that there's going to be negotiation. And when somebody accepts an offer without negotiating, they can then feel after the fact that, oh, I was undervalued or underpaid when they talk to other influencers that were in that campaign. So regardless of that, we've got a few problems. One, it's clear that especially in the Black influencer community, they're feeling undervalued by For. So irregardless of anything, that is not a feeling that's acceptable. And so we need to change that. Yes, I run a business, and part of that business is making sure if I buy a post here, can I make sure I make this much so that middle, which is not a big section, the vast majority of the money goes to, that the brand pays is paid out to influencers. We don't take any cut from the influencers. We charge the brands a fee to manage the campaign. But if you get an offer and you feel like it's a low ball and it's not fair, that's a terrible way to start a partnership, right?
Yeah.
So that's not okay. So one, the equations that calculate those offers, they need to be relooked at. Equations can have bias. Algorithms can be racist. That is a fact. People build them, and we are doing a full audit of those equations and redoing them. They haven't been redone in years. The industry is different and needs to change. So that's happening. 2, page, and I know you've gotten a few offers from us. The page that has the offer and it has the deliverables and the amount of money that's on it, we're changing the design of that page so it doesn't feel so much like you have to accept this in the next hour or you're going to miss out, right?
Yes, and that's where I felt, not just with you, but I felt that way in the past with working with brands where it's like, you got to act now. You're like, well, when you think of my overhead, I mean, I'm very thankful that my husband shoots 99% of my content. Okay. And so I have in-house, but those that have to outsource, it's often not even worth it.
Right. Absolutely. And so we want to take away some of the things that make it feel like now, must accept. And also make sure that that influencers know it's a first, not a final offer. Because I do think there's privilege in being the person that looks at, an offer and is like, I can negotiate that up,
And I feel truly besides boosting women's confidence, that my mission is to boost their confidence when it comes to money. We've traditionally been underpaid, and knowing that that's not acceptable anymore, knowing that we do have more leverage and power. I think that comes with partly a self-worth thing and pushing the envelope, because just to be transparent, I'm so tired of seeing mediocre white influencers, pardon how that sounds, but just being transparent, have not great content, not wonderful engagement, and be selected. And I know often that has to do with the brands that you work with that want to select an influencer that they admire, they've worked with, that they know, that is buzz trendy. And I feel like working with them, it's Four's responsibility to push the envelope, to push for more diversity.
Mm-hmm. Which, you know, we have done. You know, I think like we published those numbers last night. 28% of the last $9 million went to Black influencers, 32% to non-Black POC, 34% to Caucasian. Those numbers aren't perfect. I think they are representative of the real efforts that we have made to push our clients to make sure that those campaigns look like America, not like they're, you know, graduating graduating class of Westchester, you know. And clients are on board too. Look, we haven't had a campaign in, you know, 6 months that hasn't called out that like diversity is really important in making sure that, you know, that the influencers they suggest are diverse. Now, it doesn't address the fact of, is the pay equal for influencers of a similar size? That's the, you know, that's the question that we have not answered yet, that we're still going through the data. And I think another, you know, one more thing that we are kicking around, we haven't committed to it yet just because we're trying to understand the semantics of doing it, but is a dashboard that will be public for influencers on Four, that just shows the last month, where did the money go? Not to people, obviously, that's, you know, we have confidentiality in our contracts with influencers, but, you know, ethnicity, gender, following size, where did the money go? And then what were the average payouts per, let's say, Instagram post at different levels of following? Because part of it is, if I'm a new influencer, I've got 50,000 followers, people are saying like, hey, you should work with brands. And you're like, okay. And you don't know
what that number would be.
Yeah, you don't, and there's not a lot of clarity there, right?
No.
And so you don't want to come in too high, you don't want to come in too low. And you know, we do pay influencers millions of dollars a year. And so like generally our offers are based on like, you know, the data of like those millions of dollars of payouts. What is a post? What are we generally paying for a post? Now, do we pay less than other people? Often, yes, because if, let's say we start working with you twice a month or something, right? Mm-hmm. With Four, you could potentially work with Four 20 times a year, whereas you could never work with a single brand 20 times a year. So I do think that sometimes we get lower rates because like any scale business, like Amazon pays less for the things that they sell than the mom and pop down the street.
Of course.
Right? You know, so, but I don't think that benefit has been proportionately, you know, spread out amongst Black influencers, and we're doing that research now. So that's pricing. There's a lot we need to change that this conversation has brought up about the way we price and offer campaigns. And we'll be talking more about that tomorrow. Well, I guess this will also come out tomorrow, but we'll talk more about that in the town hall. The other thing with the freshman class is, you know, we made a lot of mistakes with that. It came from a place where I was pushing the team to push our clients to include more diverse voices in the campaigns. If you looked 2 or 3 years ago, I guarantee 30%, 29%, 28%, that was not the number.
I know.
Yeah, you know, and we internally said like, you know, this isn't okay and we want to do better. And honestly, we had run a few campaigns that were, you know, all Black influencers, and the performance was shocking how good it was. You know, it
shouldn't be though, but
vastly outperformed a similar campaign with white influencers. And so we, as a business person, started being like, this just fucking works. Like we just, you know, and we need to make sure our clients are including these voices. One, because they should, and well, 2 reasons they should, because it's right and fair.
And the ROI is the ROI is much better.
It works, yeah. So that wasn't as moving as quickly as I liked. And I said, instead of instead of writing a letter, instead of writing an Instagram post, we were a much smaller company at that time. I went to my CFO and I was just like, can I have $25,000? I want to run a program that is going to highlight underrepresented voices on our platform. And instead of telling our clients they should be working with underrepresented voices, show them the opportunity, show them why, help hand the For platform over to these incredible voices in a way that hopefully our clients wouldn't be able to ignore. And we had 1,600 people apply. There was, tens of thousands of testimonials written. It was harder to get into freshman class than Harvard with percentages. And we flew 10 people we were really excited about out to New York. We put them in the Four Seasons. We had them meet with, we had them meet Facebook. We did internal education with our teams. We threw a party with all of our clients. Unfortunately, we had a freak snowstorm that night.
Wow.
That made a lot of people not be able to show up. And then we did ongoing education. And I do think that one of the mistakes is that, we found so many inspiring influencers that we were just totally obsessed with, who had a smaller following. And generally we don't pay anyone under 10,000 followers. It's just very difficult for us to work with anyone with less than that. And I think there's, an argument to be made of should you even be able to be on For with less than 10,000 followers, because it creates an unrealistic expectation that you're going to get gigs when brands just don't work on paid gigs with influencers with less than 10K through us. They might do that on their own. And so coming out of that program, we felt like, okay, we've found these really incredible voices that we're excited about. We highlighted them. We sent every client, a PDF with their information, who they were, what they did, why they were exciting. We did some some of our clients wanted to do giftings for the freshman class. And we then dropped the ball. We had promised ongoing education, and right after freshman class, it just went into the holiday season and things got crazy. And it was mid-December and we hadn't sent anything about ongoing education. And we were I sent this email called Freshman Fumble. And I was like, my bad. I promised that. Here's the fix. Once a week, someone from our staff or a client or another big influencer is going to do an education session. Mm-hmm. I've got office hours every 2 weeks that you guys can join, structured that out. And I do think that a lot of the freshman class felt like the way it was pitched potentially was that this was going to result in a lot of paid brand deals from us. And that was our hope. It really was, but I think sometimes selecting too many influencers under 10K because we were so inspired by their content and their stories meant that we were setting them up for failure. That we were kind of promising this thing that given the market forces in the industry probably wasn't going to happen. And I think that created a lot of...
That's a fair way of acknowledging it. So now we're thinking of you talked about doing a diversity inclusion group. What about support for Black creatives? What if there was more, this is the thing, whatever happened with the freshman class, these girls now have greater followings because of all the things that they've learned. But is there a way to support more Black creatives, maybe with educational component, negotiation? As much as I understand how For is, it has your ranking and where you are, I still feel how are people selected for?
Yeah.
How
for campaigns?
Yeah, for campaigns.
That's a great question.
For me, I've had 2 campaigns with you, and I felt, to be transparent, that the amount of work requested was not equal to the payout. Mm-hmm. And as you guys are switching to more of a brand ambassador role, maybe let's just talk about tips for Black creatives right now what to do to move forward
Yeah.
with four.
Yeah.
Maybe if it's not an education piece, like let's just brass tacks. Like, what are you telling me with my influencer following, what I can do now to better improve myself with everything that's happening right now?
Yeah. Well, you know, one thing that we're committed to that we're announcing at the town hall is it's clear, you know, we've never had a community ahead of community, right? Like we've been really fortunate that we have 100,000 influencers on four. We haven't reached out to really any of those people and asked them to join. It's just grown on its own, which is, you know, we're really fortunate. But it's clear that we also need we need a voice in for. I think that voice should be a Black woman that is running the community development side of the business. You know, because we do, you know, like I would be like, look, we do Drink with James. We are putting out.
And I'm a follower of Drink with James, even though I don't do all these things that I've done, but work with you guys. But I do. It's smart information. It's really great content week after week that no one else is doing. But there's still this imbalance that needs to be fixed.
Yeah. And so we're, you know, even though we're generally on a hiring freeze, like we're going to have that job description up tomorrow, and we're going to start hiring for that role, because I think that there's some healing that needs to happen between us and our community, especially the Black community of influencers. And I think what I've seen in you know, one of the many lessons from this week is that my vision is, you know, I can't see into every community. And I think that what's come out this week has been talked about for years in the Black community. And because I am not in that community, and sometimes because I have failed to listen when I should, I should have been in solving those problems 2 years ago, you know? And I think having
say that. So thank you for admitting it. But with privilege, even I'm talking about, you know, my husband acknowledging his white privilege, and he's like, I just feel so heavy. And I'm like, what? He's like, this is just awful. All the things that are happening. I said, well, honey, this is my reality. Like, you understand a little bit from being in the home with me, but like when you take all of it at face value and then realize that it's you, that there's an aha moment. I think you just had your aha moment.
Yeah.
And I think now it's the time to look at it and saying, like, what can we change? Having these conversations, having this town hall, it's going to be important. But I guarantee you, Black creatives are going to hold you and other brands accountable when it's no longer a trend 5 months from now, and seeing like our things are not going to go back to where they are. I think maybe you guys need to do some restructuring with how campaigns are, with brand ambassadorship, et cetera. But what it's going to look like, it's still a big market. It's not going to die, but I think it's just going to change. And are you going to be there with the change the right way?
I mean, for us, it's like, we want to lead the change, right? That this is, for me, like, we were the first influencer marketing company in the world, platform in the world. We were the first company to come out with tools to, you know, figure out if you have fake following or not. We were the first company to be able to create these like custom Insta stories. We were the first company to run a campaign where like an ambassador campaign where you had to apply to get in through Sephora Squad. We have been leading the industry for years, and this is it. This is the central issue right now, and we want and intend to lead on it. You know?
I love it.
And so I think that's a big reason why we were called out. Not that we were uniquely bad actors in this space, but that, you know, with the position of leadership comes responsibility to lead, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, the changes that we're putting in place, the reason I initially said, hey, give us to June 30th, is because for me, this isn't about putting out a statement that's going to be good enough to have people not, you know, kind of throw shade at it. It's not about, you know, donating to the NAACP as kind of a tax on being able to just go back to doing other things. It's about, you know, creating that change. I saw in my own life how transformative access to opportunity can be. And I'm a privileged white man, you know, and I moved to a city where I didn't know anyone, and the internet brought me into a world that changed my life completely. And I started this company to do that for other people. There are hundreds, maybe thousands of people who have quit their jobs and gone full time as an influencer through FOR. It is my absolute number one thing that I'm proud of. And it is clear through all this that I don't, you know, FOR, and by extension, as its head, me, doesn't understand the Black community well enough, isn't listening enough, and that we need to have strong leadership internally that understands those communities implicitly and is advocating for them, because so that our policies aren't blindly biased or blindly, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Something with a P. I can't remember.
I lost you there. I don't know, but
you get what I'm saying.
I appreciate that. Where I also, you know, sitting here, and it didn't even come up to me when I'm taking notes for this chat. It's looking at implicit bias within the office place, as well as the brands that you work with. There's a greater need for education and ownership. I get frustrated when I see appropriation of our hair products, our lips, our size, our color with Black brands or Black people on white influencers and making much more money. I mean, that's just something that's been happening for a while.
Right.
How will FOR, because you make your money with your relationship with the brands, how will this change your relationship with the brands? Will you include a town hall with the brands to talk about their philosophy of like where they've been short-sighted, or encourage them? Because you can only do so much. You are a platform. It's the brand. So what's gonna stop them from saying, we still want to work with, you know, so-and-so influencer because she's popular at the moment, when you still have Black creators still wanting a piece of the pie?
Right. Great question. So one, absolutely. So these town halls are weekly right now. We do them every Wednesday, and we're currently, you know, trying to pull clients into the next one. So that's definitely a part of the conversation I want to have, and make sure that clients are at the table as well, having this talk. You know, they're little things. I think about a lot of the changes that we can make. A lot of it is like marginal gains, right? It's like, how can there are big sweeping changes that need to be made. And I think that's the work that's being done, you know, over the next couple of weeks for a lot of brands, is enacting some of those more sweeping, dramatic changes that need to happen. And then through time, it's the marginal gains. It's getting a little better every day, a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And there's things for us, like on a campaign, currently with FOR, it is optional to select your ethnicity. So if you're going to be in a campaign with us, we're not going to make that optional, so that we can have full transparency with the brand of what percentage ethnicity breakout is this campaign from an influencer standpoint, what percentage is the breakout from a payout standpoint, and also being transparent with them of what those payouts were for different influencers as it relates to ethnicity. So there's going to be a lot more transparency on our end of what we, you know, kind of report back to the brand. And look, you know, the brands we've talked to this week, I think
they're on board. Yeah,
they're on board. And look, the great thing about this movement, about calling out the brands who have expressed their emotion and said, what are your actions, is I think the world has changed. I think we in the last week have lived through, you know, a period of time that it's just, we'll look back and say that was a turning point. That's my hope, but it is
I
my
feel
belief.
like that too. I feel like consistently pushing that it's changed.
It's just changed. The world's changed. And I was talking to my niece who lives in the West Village and is like 14. And I was like, look, you know, you got to come out to one of these protests with me because history is happening. And if you have children, they will ask you what you did this week. And she's been signing petitions and everything and doing her thing. But it's important to be out there. It's important to be an active participant in changing history, not just somebody who goes along with it once it changes.
No, and it just goes along with it or repost a black square. It's not good enough. And I'm going to open this up because we talked about this offline, but I raise you, my fellow white influencers, to step up. I appreciate, and I say step up and not in saying that they have not been inclusive, but there, all of these things that happen, people stayed silent, and that's how we got to where we are. But if people would have spoken up and said, "Hey, I have the same following as so-and-so, why isn't she on this campaign? Why isn't she included in these influencer trips?" All of these things that have consistently gone wrong, no one said anything. No one stood up. And that's why we're here. And I appreciate the support of people resharing my page and encourage people to follow. And it's really great to have a somewhat of a elevated audience of new people. But at the end of the day, you know, my content has never been particularly for Black women. It's been for women to empower themselves with confidence to reach their full potential. And that's Black, white, Asian, whatever. And I hope that the people that have come stay. But I would love to, if you really want to support, partner with us. I do brand videos all the time. I partner with other influencers. Consider how many times you partnered with a woman of color.
Right.
At the end of the day, like I said, we're more alike than we're different. Yeah. And it's not an attack, and I hope this doesn't come off as an attack, but move and work where you're comfortable. But if you want to be on the right side of history, I think all of this is about ways to heal. On Friday, I did an Instagram live with a white yoga teacher and myself, and we talked about white privilege and ways that the Black community can be better. And as much as we're asking so many white people to like read these books, know your knowledge, like, do we know our own history? And I raised you this: do you know how to be an advocate for yourself in business? Right. Because at the end of the day, it's business, it's dollars and cents. Are you, do you have your media kit together? Do you have your website together? Are you able to negotiate for yourself? And I welcome anyone to reach out to me in ways that I can help you and that we can be better. But I think now is the time we all rise. Yeah. Yeah. And we'll put your email address in the description of this video and the podcast so that if people are interested in reaching out, they've got an easy way to grab you, as well as your Instagram. I think that, you know, a lot of the white influencers I know, are honest, you know, they're waking up to the two Americas for the first time, you know, and I think they're really asking I think they're starting to feel that guilt that comes with the acknowledgement of their privilege. You know, they're realizing that, oh, you know, you didn't hit a triple, you were born on third base. And I think they're looking for ways to be, you know, better advocates, better allies. So you mentioned a few, collaborating with, you know, Black influencers on, you know, it's an easy way influencers do it to grow all the time. Do a post with another influencer. Do posts, IG lives, whatever. Support.
There's been a few influencers who have talked about inclusivity riders, you know, to say that I won't be part of this campaign unless it is diverse and inclusive. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a really bold stance. I support that, but I also want people to feel comfortable doing what feels authentic to them. The same way I didn't feel comfortable, like saying, you know, F you, James, like, you know, posting on my Instagram. I rather have a collaborative conversation. I think people need to do what feels authentic to them. Yes, that would be great. if that, but that's also your brand.
Mm-hmm.
The same way that someone doesn't want to be politically affiliated Republican or Democrat, that's your own privilege.
Right.
No, at the end of the day, when you're looking at someone's body of work, you have to be comfortable with it, of your body of work for yourself. If that's where you feel comfortable and that's your activism, go for it. But keep in mind, I've always tried to stay neutral in my political emotions and feelings, and work by action. So if it's not on the platform of Instagram or social media, what am I doing behind the scenes? I think all of it starts micro within your community. What can you do in your community for change?
Mm-hmm.
In relating to the influencer space? If that aligns with you, then great.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think to one of your points about, like, you know, operating within your brand, I think I will say, especially to the, you know, white influencers or brands listening, when I say I think the world has changed, I said this after the election when that, you know, shit stain was elected into office, Trump.
You said it, not me.
I said that I believe that we are no longer living in a world where silence is acceptable. You know, where if you are a Democrat and you didn't post about voting for Hillary in 2016, this is what I was saying. I said this when the first Muslim ban came out.
Yeah.
And I said, like, look, oh, your video went away.
Shoot. Sorry, I'm running low.
You're good. Okay,
Charge
we're
your
almost
phones, guys.
we're almost at an hour too.
Okay, wait, hold on.
But you can plug in.
Yeah, let me plug in. I'm moving closer. But I mean, you're right. If you're not actively supporting, then you're actively against.
Yes. And I think we are living in like a post-privacy world where, like, I think that you have to take a stand on this stuff and you have to say what side of the issue that you're on. And that, I think, is going to be one of the kind of core foundational things that changes the world in a way, right? For those brands that didn't, there's a lot of brands that haven't said anything.
There are.
You know? And
there's a lot of, and
there's a lot of brands that have paid lip service. But again, over the next weeks and months, I hope the community's checking in.
It's action. It's not enough to be silent.
Yeah. And saying, what have you done? You said you were going to do, you said we have to be better.
Yeah.
Have you been? Let's see it. If not, you know, the Black community is an incredibly powerful consumer group.
And that's what we need to realize to take our power back.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have more power than we realize. And I think we haven't, because we've been so thankful just to be invited to be at the table, but it's no longer acceptable. And I feel like it's all blown to smithereens, like I said, and we're starting from ground zero. And I welcome the change. I welcome the conversations. And in 5 months from now, I will be looking at these brands to see what they've done on the back end.
Yeah. So I would say to influencers, to go back to it, that, like, if you're not understanding what's going on in the world, if you're not agreeing with it, if you feel like, oh, right, but like, should the protesters be like breaking windows? Like, I think you need to like educate yourself and get your views changed, or expect the world around you to change very quickly, and for those opportunities to dry up. Because I think, I think, you know, we've seen how powerful a group of voices can be in creating change, you know, and I think it's here to stay.
Yeah, I'm floored by the consistent protests still.
Mm-hmm.
And I live right in the heart of it, downtown, and I've seen it, I've been involved in it. We're going to look back in 50 years and feel like this was the breaking point.
Yep.
And it should have happened a long time ago. But I'm glad you're having this conversation with me. And I just want to give context for people of like how we connected.
Yeah.
I literally just emailed. I just said, hey, I really appreciated your video with Dr. James. John. Days, sorry. My head's been going too much today.
I wish I was a doctor. If I could.
Doctor. Yes, that video, if you guys haven't watched it, was phenomenal. And I just responded saying, thank you for that. And I think these are some ways that FOR can improve, including like a town hall like you're hosting. And the conversation was open. So using your voice and the email goes further than you can ever imagine. I encourage everyone to just do that. Most people don't email. Most people sit and complain. They tweet. They argue. Just talk. And now we're sitting here and having a constructive conversation, and hopefully that opens your mind to take action.
Absolutely. This has been, we've just burned through an hour pretty easily, and feel like we could keep going. But again, thank you so much. And I think you said you were going to join the town hall, and I encourage.
Yeah.
I hope you ask tough questions. I think that, like, as I've said, like, I don't have skeletons. I have things that I'm not proud of, but I don't have skeletons that I'm trying to hide. I don't have things that I'm, gonna spin or, try and get away from. I think that to regain authenticity, especially in the Black influencer community, my absolute honesty is the first thing that I have to give. And then I think we need to follow it up with action. So I appreciate these conversations more than you can know. And I look forward to continuing to speaking.
Yes. I look forward to it. Thank you, James.
I know you had a busy on-camera day today, and it continues. So
continues.
Thanks for making the time.
It's good.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.